Well, I think culture is it is a reflection of our moment and our time, right? And present culture is the way we express how we're feeling about the moment. And we should always find times to express how we feel about the moment that is a reflection of joy, because it comes in the morning.
Ain't nothing changed, nothing new here to see. This ain't nothing but some political maneuvering.
America.
Welcome to the eulogy, eat it up. It's called political buffoonery.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of This Week in DUMBmocracy, a show that reacts to political buffoons in the wild as caught on film. Before we get to this video, I just want to take a moment of personal privilege, if you will, to just say thank you to everybody who checked out the last video that I put up last Friday regarding Vivek Ramaswamy. I almost say Vivek Ramaswamy. I'm learning, guys, thanks to you. And Teslin Figaro. The way that you guys blew up that video was absolutely amazing. The channel has grown exponentially, at least comparatively, in subscribers, thanks to you. It got more views than any other video I've ever made, ever, thanks to you. It got more attention than any other content I've ever created in the past 10 years between podcast, radio, or video, thanks to you. And I just wanted to express how grateful I am to everyone for checking it out, and the kind words, all the constructive criticism. It means a lot that there's a community growing out there. At least I hope it's growing out there, that A, cares about what this guy is rambling about, and B, cares enough about this country to put down a comment, to subscribe to a channel, to give a crap about what these sort of political buffoons are doing to our country. I'm really just, as you can tell, I'm completely overwhelmed by the whole situation. And what do I do when I'm completely overwhelmed? Well, I shill. Because now that we have an audience building, I need to tell you more about my book, Schnooks, Crooks, Liars, and Scoundrels, a field guide to identifying political buffoons. Guys, this is a book that is sort of a collection of ideas and musings that I developed with a whole group of friends of mine in politics based upon our decade of being involved in different campaigns and interacting with different people. It's a fun read. It's also meant to be informative about political leadership. Check it out. It's available at Amazon, at Barnes & Nobles, and other online bookstores. Let's get into this video from the end of June that was just released actually last Friday of Vice President Kamala Harris responding to a question at an Essence event in D.C. Concerning culture, the impact of culture, a definition of culture, and how culture should be used in communicating from a political standpoint. I promise you I'm not going to interrupt as much as I did in the last video. Let's check out the question first. We'll break down the question, and then I'm going to let the whole answer play through. I promise.
Convene really powerful influencers that represent, television shows, from actors to musicians. Like, they really have a pulse of the people. Yeah. And I truly believe that some of our elected officials are learning from you that policy alone, without using culture to actually shift hearts and minds of people, doesn't really make the mark for us. So can you talk to us, because we are in the room, in the epicenter of Black culture this weekend, and there's a lot of folks in here, in particular Black women, how y'all doing, who are in this room who want to take action. They want to protect their rights. They want to be able to move and channel their energy in very intentional ways. What are some of your ideas as to how we can do that, and how important do you think culture is in particular to help us do that?
Okay, so there was a little bit of a rambling question, and when you're on a stage like that with the Vice President of the United States, I know I'd be rambling. The person who asked the question did a pretty decent job. Explained her view, how culture drives action, and how important culture is to winning hearts and minds. I totally agree. Culture is sort of this collective reflection of how we regard human achievement and how that is contextualized in the different social groupings that we have, whether it be by race, whether it be by sex, whether it be by nationality, or political affiliation, whatever the case may be. Uh, I think it was Andrew Breitbart that said that politics is downstream from culture. So the interaction between culture and politics is something that Republicans have only really started to get a bit of a handle on after probably at least a 10 to 15 year head start by Democrats, who took over cultural institutions like education, like Hollywood. Uh, you see the influence of culture in our movies, in our content creation, in books, in newspaper articles. You see that impact. So this is a valid question, and you're asking the second most powerful person in the world about that. I'm sure that she's going to have a great response to that question. It's going to be great.
Well, I think culture it is a reflection of our moment and our time, right? And present culture is the way we express how we're feeling about the moment. And we should always find times to express how we feel about the moment that is a reflection of joy, because it comes in the morning. We have to find ways to also express the way we feel about the moment in terms of just having language and a connection to how people are experiencing life. And I think about it in that way too. And we also, I think it's very important that leaders, anyone who considers themselves a leader, really understands how anything they say would affect a real human being, as opposed to, otherwise be a poet and write poetry. But if you want to understand, I don't mean to dismiss poetry at all, but if you want to understand any concept, you have to ask questions like, how would this affect a child? To have a real understanding of what it is that you propose. And culture helps us do that, because you sit down with Kiki Palmer and you're going to have a real conversation about, about a variety of issues. But I think it's so important also just to be present. We have to be present. And in this moment, I think there's a perversion in some ways about what it means to have strength. Some people would suggest that it is a sign of strength based on who you beat down, when I think most of us know the real sign of strength is based on who you lift up. And so all that we can do that is about that is, I think, in preservation and in the purpose of growing our strength.
Like what you see so far? Go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. Also, leave us a comment and tell us what you're thinking. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another show. First of all, I tried really, really hard not to interrupt in that whole answer. You might have seen me struggle a little bit. What the hell was that? Did she answer the question? Did that even make sense? It didn't make sense to me. That's got to be one of the most empty, just nonsensical. What's the word I'm looking for? Vapid. She's a vapid person, and if I have to hear her cackle one more time to cover up the uncomfortable awkwardness of listening to her, and she realizes in her head she's screwing up, that's when the cackle comes out. You notice that there was at least 2 instances of it. What in the world happened there? It felt like asking a kid to summarize a chapter of a book for like a homework assignment, and then they didn't read the book. They didn't go through that chapter, and they're trying to fake it till they make it. And that probably best summarizes Kamala Harris as a vice president so far. Faking it till she makes it, and she hasn't made it yet. But this also represents sort of a larger problem here. And in this sense, it seems like people on the left have a problem with definitions. We all know the controversy over defining what a woman is. Adult human female was a pretty simple answer. The idea of culture probably a little bit more nuanced, but in nowhere in that combination of words, which I recognize as the English language, but don't necessarily understand what was being said, there was no definition of culture. It just wasn't there. And clearly we know from past speeches, this is not the first time we've seen Kamala Harris put together a word salad and try to serve it up to everyone. There's been other instances about the discussions with aid to Jamaica, talking to people like their kindergartners about this country's good, this country's bad. We've seen this before, and I just keep thinking about how back in 2020, Kamala Harris was the chosen child. It wasn't Joe. Remember, it wasn't Joe Biden that was going to win the Democratic primary in 2020. It was supposed to be Kamala Harris. She checked all of the intersectional boxes, right? Female, minority, attorney. So she's supposed to be smart, It was all there for the taking. She could have talked about criminal justice reform. She could have talked about all different topics until Tulsi Gabbard basically killed her political career. Until it was resurrected by Joe Biden. Again, politics is probably one of the only fields, people, that you fail upward. You don't get any votes in your convention, but you get nominated to be vice president, and it's just amazing to me how that happens in politics. But coming back to Kamala Harris, this is the type of buffoon that I talk about in my book, Schnooks, Crooks, Liars, and Scoundrels. I'm going to show it. Am I going to show it again? Yeah, I'm going to show it again. Schnooks, Crooks, Liars, and Scoundrels, a field guide to identifying political buffoons. This is, we like to call, like I said, we give little pet names to different buffoons. This is Buffoonicus Oblivious. This is the political narcissist. This is someone who cares about image and less about substance. Because if she cared about substance, if you're going to an event put on by Essence, you're going to be asked about the intersection of culture and politics, most likely. Have an answer ready, or maybe go through the topics before you get there. But instead, she's there, her beautiful white suit. Again, I've talked about this before, the bella figura, the telegenic and photogenic appearance, and an absolutely empty head. If Michael Scott was a vice president, he'd be Kamala Harris. Just, the word salads don't cut it anymore. They just don't. I'm going to keep this video short. I think you all get the idea of it. The last thing I'm going to say is, we saw news last week about cocaine showing up at the White House. Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's not Kamala Harris's, because cocaine's supposed to be a stimulant. That noodle is not getting stimulated at all. What an amazing moment to capture. And I gotta say, the only Democrat that's going to be okay with this performance is probably Gavin Newsom, because he's going to see even more opportunity should Joe Biden falter in the time between the real run-up to 2024, because Kamala Harris is still not ready for prime time. Folks, that's it for this video. Thanks for tuning in. I'm glad you stayed this long. Again, I am so overwhelmed with all the way that everyone has embraced the show, has commented. Please keep watching the videos. Please keep commenting. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll catch you at the next video where we can talk about more of these shenanigans occurring this week in DUMBmocracy.
All views and opinions expressed here are not necessarily of the mainstream media and may offend some listeners. It's called political buffoonery.